We're here. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. One of my all-time favorite movies of all time. All-time favorite movie. I'm just excited to talk about this, so let's get started.
Pizza time.
So the movie opens. 3-minute opening montage of drawings from Alex Ross. It's 3 minutes long. It's unnecessarily long, but like whatever. So we see Peter Parker is working at a pizza place, and we meet the iconic Mr. Z's, who is like, you have to go 42 blocks in 7.5 minutes or he's fired, which is like an impossible task for anybody to do. So like, why are you setting him up for failure to start? So we go to deliver the pizzas. We see kids crossing the street, a big truck coming to go get a ball, and he's like, Spider-Man. So he goes and saves the kids, and he's like, no playing in the streets. And they're like, yes, Mr. Spider-Man. And he's like,
See ya.
it just dips. So when he went to save the kids, he threw the pizzas and they landed on some dude's balcony, and that dude opened the pizzas and started eating it. And I'm assuming Peter put the pizzas back in the box. That's disgusting and unsanitary. And then he swings over to the place and he comes out of a broom closet. How did he get there? One, I'm wondering that. Two, I bet you the secretary is wondering that, because he didn't come in any other way. He's just there, you know? He's just in the broom closet and having trouble putting the brooms back. So how did he get in there? So then he goes to deliver the pizza, and then we get the iconic line.
Pizza time.
And so he goes to the... Side note. Delivering pizzas in under 30 minutes was always an impossible task. But in New York, it's even more impossible. That's why they stopped doing it. It's a business model that doesn't work, and everyone will get their pizza free. And you would never actually get your pizza free. So the lady won't take pizza because it's over 30 minutes late. She said she wasn't paying for them. So Peter goes back to the pizza place and is fired. And then Mr. Z's violently rips the sticker of the business off his helmet. So then we cut. Again, we cut to good old J.K. Simmons, my best friend, J. Jonah Jameson.
Caviar? What are we, inviting the czar?
And he's like, Parker, you're fired. Everybody firing Peter left and right. And it's because Peter won't give him pictures of Spider-Man anymore. And Peter's all like, he says Spider-Man won't let him take any more pictures because JJ turned the whole city against him. And JJ's like, it's a fact I'm very proud of. Peter says that he really needs the money. Then JJ goes,
Miss Brandt?
Yes.
Get me a violin.
So then Peter caves and sells him Spidey pics. Peter goes to get paid, but can't get paid because he already got an advance on his paycheck from last time. So we cut again, and he's going headed to Dr. Connor's class, right? But he's late for that. He's already missed the class. And then a bunch of people hit him in the head with books. But then he runs into Dr. Connor's, and he's like, if you want to be here, then be here. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, your paper on fusion is still overdue. So Peter's like, I'm planning on writing it on Dr. Otto Octavius. He's like, Octavius is a friend of mine. Better do your research, Parker. And he's like, get it done, or I'm bailing you. And then, so we cut again. There's a lot of cutting. And where Peter goes to Aunt May's, and surprise! This is a surprise party for him, because Peter forgot his own birthday. So, like, it makes me think, did he know about this party and forgot? Or was this, like, an actual surprise party? You know, Peter's a loser, so only Harry and MJ are there. You know, like, a guy who is the worst friend to have, and a girl that's toxic as fuck. Harry immediately kills the vibe before the vibe has even been established. And he's like,
how's the bug these days?
we learn Harry's the head of Oscorp and can actually introduce him to Otto because it's convenient for the plot. Harry gets butthurt and kills the vibe again and talks about how MJ's like in love with him. He's like, the way she looks at you and doesn't look at you. Like, I don't know how else to put it, man. And he's like,
I don't have time for girls right now.
and he's like, taking pictures of your friend?
If you knew who he was, would you tell me?
No. If he hasn't told you now, he's not telling you, Harry. Fuck off. Harry just continues to be insufferable. And then later we notice Aunt May is behind on the rent. Or the mortgage. I don't know. So Peter then starts cleaning up the party by himself because everybody just up and left. We go to Peter's backyard. He's taking out the trash, and we have another weird convo, classic weird convo with Peter and Mary Jane, where she was like, I like seeing you tonight. And his response is just,
Oh boy, yeah.
all right. And then she's like, are you into me? And Peter like tries to change the subject because he's like, can't do this with Spider-Man. And then she's like, well, I'm seeing somebody. She doesn't say it like that, but it's still toxic. Peter then promises tomorrow night he's gonna go see her play because she's been in a play that's off Broadway, so it's not really that important of a thing, but like whatever. So we cut again. We go to Peter's apartment where we meet the best character in this series, Mr. Digovich.
Brent!
And he's like,
Hi. What's hi? Can I spend it?
I just enjoy Mr. Digovich. So then he tells Peter that he's late on the rent. Peter's like, I only have this 20 for the rest of the week. And so he grabs it. And he's like, Mr. Digovich then says,
And don't try to sneak past me. I have ears like a cat and eyes like a rodent.
So then Peter, like every true emo boy, goes into his apartment and then stares at the blank walls, trying to think about his life. Then we cut again. We're at Otto's lab. It's the day Harry's going to introduce Peter to Otto. So they walk in and Harry just does the douchiest thing and he's like,
Nobel Prize, Otto. Nobel Prize. We'll all be rich.
Not about the prizes, Harry.
Peter introduces them and just dips.
We'll see you in Sweden.
And Otto's like,
Parker, now I remember you. You're Connor's student. Tells me you're brilliant. He also tells me you're lazy.
what an introduction. Way to start at the bottom and have to work your way up a hill for getting somebody to like you as a human being. So they shit and we learn that Otto is building a renewable energy device. And so they nerd out, and then Peter's all like,
Exponential increase in energy output.
and so then we cut and we go to Otto's house, and I guess they've been talking about nerd shit for an hour and a half. And then we meet Otto's wife, Rosie, and he tells the story about how they met. And she's like, Peter, tell us about yourself. Do you have a girlfriend? And he's all like, well,
I don't really know.
no, you don't. Otto gives him some advice to read her poetry, because that's gonna work coming from a nerd. I don't believe that. So then he leaves Otto's and goes to the laundromat, where he makes the amateur mistake to put a Spider-Man suit in with his white clothes. So naturally they're all red and blue. And he's reading poetry. He went to the library and got poetry books to read. Peter then gets ready for MJ's show. So then he's on his way, he's almost on time for once, and then a robbery happens. People get their robbery on, Peter almost gets run over and then does a flip, and some kids are like, how'd you do that? He's like,
Workout, plenty of rest, eat your green vegetables.
and then he goes and does the Spider-Man thing and saves a bunch of people from getting a thrown car at them. I don't know where it came from. These cops are very violent. And the lady goes, go Spidey go, and then he just replies with... So Peter stops the robbery and is late for the show. So he pulls up, and Bruce Campbell's there again. He must have lost his job as the wrestling announcer and is now doing security for a play. You mean, get the bread, I guess. He won't let Peter in. He's like...
No one will be seated after the doors are closed.
this man is just out to ruin this guy's life, like this one specific guy, because he's like, you're the one that got me fired. So Peter waits outside, and I'm assuming to like explain it all to MJ. And then he sees some dude come up to her after the show, and they kiss. So obviously it's her boyfriend. And then he leaves and becomes Spider-Man, cries. He starts web swinging, and he falls. You know, this reminds me of another scene in a different Spider-Man movie. But I can't quite place it. So then he realizes like he's really high up, and he's like, I'm gonna take the elevator. Gets in the elevator, we have an awkward elevator conversation. You know, like, elevators are like really annoying.
It rides up in the crotch a little bit too.
So the next day, Peter calls MJ from school campus, and he basically tells her he's Spider-Man, but the phone call timed out. So then we cut to the science demonstration. Otto makes a bad joke. He's like, we found $20 bills in a rubber band.
We lost a large roll of $20 bills in a rubber band because we found the rubber band.
I think it's a fun joke because it's a bad joke. So then Otto puts on the mechanical arms as like his assistants, but like, why aren't these the scientific experiment you're showing off? Because like, this has like real applications to help people, but instead you're wasting them as like assistants. Like, nobody's doing this. Like, you could make bank off these arms alone. So then the experiment starts, and he's all like,
power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
So naturally the science experiment goes wrong, and then Spider-Man steps in naturally to stop it, and Otto's like, what are you doing? And Spider-Man's like,
Behind the plug!
and like what do you think he's doing? Like, nah, I'm just here to watch. You know? Spider-Man gets everyone out, including Harry, who's being whacked again, and says,
This doesn't change anything.
Spider-Man just stares at him and leaves. I'm like, alright, we'll let you get hit next time. But then Spider-Man fails to save Rosie, kind of like how he failed to save somebody else in a different movie. Otto is electrocuted, so he successfully manages to pull the plug and stop the experiment. And then Harry does his best impersonation of me and goes,
I have nothing left except Spider-Man.
but like, now that the scene is over, I just want to bring up, like, where does Harry think Peter is? They went together and Peter just up and disappeared, and they make a note that, like, Harry knows Peter just disappeared. Like, where does he think he went? Like, how does nobody know he's Spider-Man? So then we cut to the hospital, and doctors prepping for surgery to cut off Otto's arms because they fused it in.
Anybody here take shop class?
Otto then does his best Darth Vader impression. So now we cut to the Daily Bugle. And he's like, and all we hear is
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
so then JJ calls for Hoffman.
Yeah.
And then JJ gives Doc Ock his name.
Genius.
Peter then arrives and he's asked why he doesn't have pictures of this. And Robbie's like, I heard Spider-Man was there. And they give each other this look like Robbie knows. JJ then tells Peter he's fired and then goes, you're unfired, come here.
What do you know about high society?
And then says,
Big party for an American hero. My son, the astronaut.
and then Peter's like, could you pay me in advance? So we cut to Otto at like this abandoned warehouse at the river, and we do the same split personality thing we did in the last movie, and he's like, oh, so it's time to get Robin. That's what the other personality's like. He's like, yo, time to get Robin. We gotta rob some shit. We gotta get some money. And then he does a creepy smile and goes, yes. So then we cut to the bank. Aunt May is trying to get a loan, and that's when Otto steps in with his fire drip, and he's all like breaking open safe vaults with the arms, and then throws a bag at Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man throws it back at him and goes, here's your change! Peter's powers fail again, and we get the iconic like face grab squish thing. So then Otto takes Aunt May, and we get a big fight.
Hang on!
So like I like this fight a little bit more than a train fight because it's just like we don't see Spider-Man fighting on the side of the buildings in any of the other movies, and this one you get to see it, and not only that, you have the tension of Aunt May is in the mix and could fall, and I think that just really works. And then so Spider-Man obviously saves Aunt May and says, We
sure showed him.
What do you mean, we?
Oh.
So now we cut to the high society dinner. Harry's already drunk. Just started. Harry's already like wasted, and he immediately kills the vibe about talking about Spider-Man. So then they introduce the guest of honor, John Jameson.
The delicious Captain John Jameson.
Who's with MJ. Like, what are the odds that the boss he hates, his son, is dating the love of his life? You know? Peter really, like, he just can't catch a break. So next, he goes up to Mary Jane after this whole thing, where he sees they're together, and he's like, he starts reading her he's like,
Been reading poetry lately.
And she goes,
Whatever that means.
and he's like,
Day by day, he gazed upon her. Day by day, he sighed with passion.
so, like, Peter, why don't we just chill the fuck out? It's not happening. Like, this isn't happening, buddy. Let it go. She calls Peter an empty seat. Like, fuck you. No. Peter, go find somebody else. You do better than that. And then, oh great, Harry's back, because, you know, he starts insulting Peter, saying he stole everything from him, and then slaps him. But, like, it's such, like, a soft-ass slap that, like, you can do better than that. So then the announcer announces that MJ has agreed to marry John Jameson. Genuinely wondering if she did this out of spite after what just happened with Peter, which is fucked up on both ends. So we cut. Spider-Man's swinging, trying to clear his mind, you know. And then he falls again.
Oh no! No! Ah!
Kind of like somebody else. In a different Spider-Man movie. They both hit the ground. Peter tries to climb a wall and he falls, and he can't see the newspaper anymore without his glasses, and he goes home. And it's like a transition where he throws the paper. It's really cool. This movie's full of fantastic transitions. So then we cut to Ock, who is in the abandoned building, building another device, and he's lighting a cigar. So we cut again to a whack transition of Peter's mouth, where he is at the doctor's. Basically, the doctor tells him he's fine, and that is whatever he's going through is a mental thing. Peter then explains that he had a dream. Sorry, a friend's dream. That they're Spider-Man and they can't climb up a wall. And, like, the doctor knows, like, alright, this guy is Spider-Man. Like, he's not stupid. Cut to Peter's apartment where he is having a hallucination dream that he's talking to Uncle Ben in the car again, like before he died, where he tells him great power, great responsibility. And basically it's a metaphor, which, you know, we love metaphors here, you know how it is. And he's like, I can't be Spider-Man anymore, like I want a life of my own. And Uncle Ben reaches out with his hand and Peter doesn't take it. Like I understand, like, he's tired. Like, you would be too, you know? Like, I get it. So then we get the iconic cover, you know, just like accurately represented, where he puts the costume in the trash. And it's incredible. And then we get the montage, raindrops keep falling on my head.
Raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling.
So Peter trips and falls and puts on his glasses. Peter then grossly eats a hot dog. Shoves that thing in his fucking mouth. Just shoves it in there. And then we see Peter Parker is now excelling in life. And which is like the basis of any good Spider-Man story. When one succeeds, the other fails. So then Peter goes to Mary Jane's play. And then after the play ends, him and MJ hang out, and he's like, can we pick up where we left off? And she's like, we never got on. Like what? So then he's like, I'm not an empty seat anymore.
Punch me, I bleed.
So then we cut to the Daily Bugle. JJ's planning the wedding, and then a trash guy walks in with Spider-Man's costume. He's trying to sell it. JJ's like, he must have given up, thrown in the towel, abandoned his sad little mass crusade. So then JJ said, so he buys the suit, and he's like,
Miss Brandt, give this man his money and throw in a bar of soap.
So then we cut back to Peter, and Peter sees a dude getting beat up in an alley, and just walks away. Peter, you know better. Like you know better. What are you doing? So then we cut and we go to Aunt May's, and it's the anniversary of Uncle Ben's death. They're at Peter's house, Aunt May's house, and they're like, Peter's like, listen, Aunt May, like, this has been eating me up inside. Like, I feel responsible for what happened. And he comes clean and tells the whole story. Aunt May basically says, fuck you, and then goes upstairs into her room. And then we cut to Otto, and he's like, we only need one more tool to complete this Power of the Sun device. And we go to the Osborn estate. And he shows up, he's like,
Hello, Harry.
and then he's like, Harry's response is, he's like, you're a hack. So then he holds Harry upside down, and he's like, and then that's when Harry's like selling out Peter, and he's like, find Peter Parker, he'll tell you where Spider-Man is, get me Spider-Man, and I'll give you all the tritium you need. Harry's a whack friend. Harry's like the wackest friend. Like, the fact that anyone would like willingly choose to be friends with this man blows my fucking mind. So then we cut. Peter is walking alone at night, and he sees a burning building, and he rushes in and saves a little girl. But then when he gets out, he realizes somebody was still trapped on the 3rd floor. And he realizes if he was Spider-Man, he could have gotten everybody out. Then the next day, he goes to Aunt May's and sees Aunt May is moving. And there's a little boy helping her. And she's like, I'm giving him $5. Aunt May, have you ever heard of slave labor? Maybe you should look it up. So then Peter apologizes for the other day. And she's like, she was all torn out about it. But now she's like, nah, it's cool. She's like, nah, we good. And then the little boy asks where Spider-Man is, and Peter's just like, no, he quit. He wanted to try other things, you know? And then Aunt May gives an inspirational speech about people needing something to idolize or whatever the fuck. And, like, you're gonna tell me she doesn't know? She's, like, looking into his eyes, being like, people line up for them, cheer their names, you know? He taught them to hold on a second longer, like, give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams, you know? So then we cut. Peter is on top of a building, and he's attempting to re-kickstart his powers. He runs, he makes some really whack faces, and then he falls.
My back.
Kind of like somebody else in another Spider-Man movie. But I won't make the joke. So then we cut to MJ, who is, you know, sending out wedding invitations with John. And then she's like, yo, John, can you kiss me? Like, this one guy kissed me in an alley in the rain that one time. It's weird. It's a red flag. Like, ew. Like, John, you can do better. Like, I don't know you that well. You just seem like you got a vibe where you could do better, man. So then we cut to a coffee shop where MJ and Peter meet. And she tells him that, like, part of her heard what Peter had to say, and she wants to talk. And then Peter's like, listen, like, I rushed things, like I shouldn't have done this. And he's like, and she gets all mad, and she's like, kiss me. Like, lady, you're engaged. What are you doing? Like, that's not cool. MJ's so disgusting, man. Boom, car goes through the window. Boom. Bam, it's Doc Ock, and he's all like,
Peter Parker. And the girlfriend.
and Peter's like, what do you want? and he's like, "I want to find Spider-Man, or I'll
peel the flesh off her bones."
I just want to take a second, because he threw a car at this man. A person that he thinks is a regular individual. What if he died? You'd have nothing. And then Ock causes more damage by throwing him into a wall where debris falls on him. Like, what if Peter had died because he didn't have his powers? You'd have nothing. For a doctor, it's pretty stupid. So then Ock takes Mary Jane hostage. And then, boom, Peter's got his powers back. We don't need these anymore. We got Spider-Man back. So then we cut to the Bugle, and JJ's all like, I was wrong about Spider-Man. You know, he's the only one who could have stopped Octavius, and Spider-Man was a hero. And then, boom, the suit is gone. And we get, like, the most hype transition I've ever seen.
I want Spider-Man!
And big fight time. It's big fight time. So then Ock stops the train and he's like,
You have a train to catch.
And then, which is like, it's like genius because like he knows he can't beat him in like a head-on fight. So he's like, let me just tire him out. So then Peter is trying to figure out how to stop the train, and the conductor just comes up to him and he's like, any more bright ideas? I'm like, all right, Dick. Like, you wanna try?
We're slowing down!
So Peter then stops the train and he makes some really ugly faces as he does it. Classic. Ock then takes Peter to Harry. Harry unmasks Peter and he's like, Peter, you killed my father. And Peter's like,
There are bigger things happening here than me and you.
just tell the man you didn't kill his father. It's not that hard. And Harry tells Peter where to go. Spider-Man gets to Ock's lair and he's like trying to sneak around all sneaky like, but Ock sees him. And as soon as he gets up to MJ, he's like, I should have known Osborn wouldn't have this spine to finish you. And then we get a little fight. We got a nice little fight.
Let's see you scurry out of this.
And then Ock has Spider-Man upside down, and MJ goes to hit, but like wastes time, obviously. And then Spider-Man tricks him and gets him electrocuted, and then he comes back to reality. And Spider-Man goes to unplug the machine, but it doesn't work because it's self-sustaining now. So then we get a nice little pep talk because Peter can't figure out what to do, and he's like, Peter's all like, sometimes we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams. And then so Ock decides to sacrifice himself by drowning it in the river because it is self-sustaining now. MJ nearly gets crushed. So Peter gets him out of there and he crawls all creepy like in a web to her, and he's like, we can't be together. I would get the fuck away from there. As soon as he starts crawling up to me like that. Ugh. So John shows up and makes an impossible leap to go get her. It was like inhuman. So then Peter leaves. We cut. It's wedding day. Big wedding. We're gonna get a wedding. We love weddings. But the wedding doesn't happen because she's not there. She leaves John at the altar and she runs to Peter's apartment where they agree to be together and they kiss. And then we get the final swing. And that's Spider-Man 2. I think Spider-Man 2 is a better movie than Spider-Man 1 all around. It is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. I just love it so much. But, yeah, Doctor Strange is about to come out. I'm going to go see it. So if this comes out before or after, I'm not sure. But hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.